Nobody excites me more for the spring game than Dakorien Moore.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Quarterback room discussion. We'll see probably 5 guys, what to expect from them going into Saturday's spring game, and how we should feel about the room overall, and more, all on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, Dakorien Moore is one of the most highly touted recruits in recent memory. And another one, actually, is in the transfer portal. Justin Flo, that Justin Flo, is in the portal. Number 1 Oregon portal target, baby. Let's go. Yeah, no, not happening. But Dakorien Moore is going to happen on Saturday. It's the first time most people will really be seeing him other than random Twitter clips that fly out there because Dan Lanning keeps things very guarded. There's not a whole lot of media access. So this is the first opportunity for basically everyone outside of practice who's going to get to see the highest rated wide receiver recruit in Oregon history play football for the first time. And is it a real game? No. Is it close to a real game? Close enough. And I could not be more excited to watch him play. And there are a couple reasons why I'm so excited to watch him more than any other player, including Dante Moore, by the way, who I will talk about plenty on today's show. I am more excited to watch Dakorien Moore than Dante Moore. Part of that is that Dakorien Moore is more of an unknown. We don't actually have an idea how he matches up against college competition. Dante Moore is one of the players I'm excited to see. I think he's more interesting than exciting, though I am excited to watch Dante Moore play, make no mistake about it. I'm just interested to see how he evolves his game in this Oregon offense. But Dakorien Moore is just a complete and total unknown. The high school film is crazy. The recruiting hype is 100% warranted. Unlike some other notable 5-star Oregon recruits that I've covered here on the show, there has not been an injury to speak of, so he should be a full go as far as spring game standards go. And I don't know exactly what my expectations are. I might get to that later in this segment, but just the way that this guy plays football, I don't know which Oregon receiver he really reminds me of. He's maybe a shade under 6 feet tall, kind of in that 5'10", 5'11"-ish range. You know, he got compared at one point recently in the offseason to Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals, which is an insane comp. If that's only stylistically, that's one thing. If he actually is a Jamar Chase type player, that's the best receiver Oregon's ever had. So he's got all that potential. And Jurion Dickey hasn't worked out yet. We'll see if he finds the field this year. Interested to watch him and the other receivers, of course, too. Justin Flo, that didn't work out super well. Kayvon Thibodeau couldn't have gone any better. Haloti Ngata couldn't have gone any better. Jonathan Stewart couldn't have worked out any better. Those are the highest rated recruits in Oregon history. So the hype on that, no metric, no rating, no group of players, position group, whatever, ever has a 100% hit rate. It does not happen. 5-star guys have a really high hit rate. That includes with Oregon. So I'm just stoked to watch him just to see what he looks like, who he moves like, how ready is he for college football. Because something I always keep in mind about Kayvon Thibodeau when he showed up as the number 1, not just overall player at his position, he was the number 1 overall recruit in the class of 2019. Number 1 overall recruit. He did not start right away. There was a bit of an adjustment period even for him. Now, the one difference between Kayvon and Dakorien is that Dakorien plays a position where, not just in the last several years, but just in any year really, it's a lot easier for a true freshman to contribute right away. We saw this with Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, who also, by the way, got better as the year went on. I fully expect Dakorien to have that sort of adjustment because it's just a different level no matter how good you are. He's just more ready to adapt to it than most recruits coming out of high school. Ryan Williams at Alabama, Cam Coleman at Auburn. There are a lot of examples in recent years. Those guys were all just in last year's class. And Dakorien, if he'd have been in that class, by the way, would have been one of the top receivers in that cycle as well. This is not a function of, well, it's not as deep of a high school receiver class. Like, no, every high school recruiting class has a bunch of receivers. So I think he's unique. He is exciting, but also I don't know. I don't know what he looks like in anything resembling a game setting against college competition. So I definitely want to see that. From an expectation standpoint, Dallas Wilson, who my everydayers out there might remember, was a one-time Oregon commit. He was going to flip to Florida, and then on the first signing day, he didn't. He signed with Oregon, and everybody, myself included, was expecting him to flip to Florida, and we went, wait, what just happened? Did Oregon just pull the greatest rabbit out of the hat? We still don't know everything that went down. He went to Florida. He popped in the spring game, 10 catches, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. If Dakorien does that, I tell you what, the comment section on this particular channel is going to be buzzing like no other. And I'll be here for it. I will absolutely, positively be here for it and ramping up the hype train on Dakorien Moore. So I'm not going to place that sort of expectation. I'm just saying that true freshmen have contributed immediately at other programs across the country, and he is that sort of recruit. But, one of the things that excites me about him, he's not like any receiver that Oregon has had recently that's been wildly productive throughout the course of his career. I think he reminds me perhaps a little bit, size-wise and style of play, perhaps like Braylon Addison, but he's more explosive. And I mean, Addison was a phenomenal receiver, don't get me wrong. But the ability of Addison to line up anywhere on the field and kind of do anything is what I think Dakorien's going to be able to bring to the table. And does he get involved in gadget plays? I don't know. I think time will tell whether or not they want to use him in that capacity or whether or not he's used in the return game at all. But the other reason that I'm so excited about him is from a skill position standpoint. I think this is probably the most hyped player since Royce Freeman that I can remember. Skill position, outside of quarterback, outside of offensive line. He's way up there. Royce Freeman would be on that list. DeAnthony Thomas would be in that discussion as well. Oregon just hasn't had true freshmen that come in with this sort of recruiting profile. And you know what? It doesn't guarantee one single thing other than he's going to be an Oregon Duck this year. But it locks in my excitement as well. That's another thing that's guaranteed. So there are a lot of different things that I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks leading up to this game on Saturday that I'm excited to watch. The secondary, the receiver room, who pops on the defensive line, which of the young linebackers are going to play well, how do the quarterbacks look, all that sort of stuff. I am intrigued to see all of that. I think Dakorien Moore is the player or idea on this team that excites me the most because of what the upside could be. If he has a 100-yard game, maybe they should just give Oregon their first national championship now. I don't know. That's just an idea out there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter. All of that good stuff. Who's throwing Dakorien the ball? I don't know. Saw a video on Twitter yesterday of Brock Thomas throwing him the ball. Who? The 5th quarterback. What about the other 4? It's going to be really fun. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. And if you wanted to bet things related to Oregon, you can do that. They've got win total. They've got top 5 national championship odds. They've got number 2 Big Ten championship odds. There's just a bunch of great stuff over there. Go and check them out today. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Check them out at FanDuel.com. Let's talk quarterbacks. why wouldn't we talk quarterbacks? Because this is the most, all right, not the most questionable situation Oregon's had at quarterback since I've been covering the show, because we didn't know what Bo Nix was going to be. That's the fun part about this, though. We didn't know. We had a sample size that wasn't, well, actually, Bo Nix's was significantly bigger than Dante Moore's, but it wasn't a positive sample size. His 3 years at Auburn, he won some games. He made some great plays. He turned the ball over too much. He didn't complete more than 61% of his passes. His first 2 years were under 60% completion. And then he came to Oregon and inserted himself into the Heisman race almost immediately and stayed there throughout the course of 2 seasons with the Ducks. So that worked out pretty darn well. Now, Dylan Gabriel was a pretty proven commodity at Oklahoma, had his best ever season with the Ducks this past year, completed, I think it was 74% of his passes. No surprise in Will Stein's offense. That's kind of what it's built around. And he was a Heisman finalist for the first time in his career. And so now you insert Dante Moore, in all likelihood. Perhaps Austin Novosad is pushing Dante more than we suspect, but with the limited amount of media information that gets out there and access that is given, whenever a clip does circulate, I tend to think it's not by accident, and I've seen plenty of Dante Moore out there. I have also heard a time or two that Dante's likely to be the guy. It just hasn't officially been named, but that's who everyone expects based on his timeline, recruiting trajectory, and his overall ceiling is incredibly high. But am I excited to watch all of these guys? Yeah, absolutely. So you've got 5 quarterbacks in the room for Oregon. You have Dante Moore, you have Austin Novosad, you have Luke Moga, and you have Brock Thomas. And by the way, most of you probably don't know, Brock Thomas, senior year of high school, threw for 41 touchdowns and almost 3,000 yards and was a first-team All-State selection. Not bad. Not bad whatsoever. But those are the quarterbacks that you've got in Oregon's room. And I fully expect it to be kind of how you would suspect. I think there's one potential change up on the depth chart. So I expect Dante Moore to be the starter. No qualms. I expect Austin Novosad to be his backup. That's not where I think you could have a flip-flop. The third spot, and look, let's all hope and pray that Oregon doesn't have to go down to a third quarterback at any point this season. Luke Moga, we'll talk about more in just a sec, is going into his second season. Really talented athlete. Developmental project as a passer. That's not the scouting report on Achilles Smith Jr. I wonder if the true freshman is going to wind up being the number 3 quarterback or looking like the number 3 quarterback. So I expect Dante Moore to start. I don't expect him to be a Heisman finalist this year. If he comes back for 2026, then I would expect him to be in the Heisman discussion more seriously throughout the course of the year. But if he does do that, then, well, I got a question on that in a moment, and I'll circle back. But the non-freshmen to watch in this room are the only real non-freshmen. Like Brock Thomas is just kind of there. And again, guy could probably find a starting quarterback job somewhere, probably the FCS ranks, but that's Oregon's 5th emergency backup quarterback and whatnot. Hopefully that situation doesn't arise. I don't know that it ever has in college football where you go to a 5th quarterback. But hey, as we know, Ohio State won a national championship with their 3rd string quarterback. Sometimes crazy stuff happens. So Novosad is definitely somebody who I want to see some progression from, but he looked pretty darn good last year. He just made a couple of bad decisions, but made some really, really high-level throws and really went throw for throw with Dante Moore. If you go look at what their highlights were from last year's spring game. But Luke Moga is an interesting one. So this question came in from Blazer Duck ahead of the spring game, and you can always submit questions too. YouTube comments, Twitter. Those are ways to get in the mailbag. You can become a Locked On Ducks Insider to get priority mailbag access. Bunch of other perks as well. Link in the description below. You can get a free 14-day trial. Blazer Duck asks, Spencer, if Luke Moga doesn't pan out as a starting quarterback or backup QB, do you see him transitioning to being a wide receiver with his athletic abilities? Would you be on board with it? Frankly, no. I mean, he is an insanely good athlete. Like, if you just, regardless of position, said or asked who are the best athletes on the team, Moga probably cracks the top 5. Like, just overall athletic ability, running, jumping, changing direction, those sorts of things. Moga is probably up there. Devin Jackson is up there. Dakorien Moore is probably up there. Evan Stewart would probably have to be up there. That's probably... I might be missing somebody, but Kingston Lopa maybe? Kingston Lopa is a really athletic guy at safety. So his athletic traits are really intriguing. A question I got on Moga a while ago is an idea that I think is the most optimistic outlook for his immediate future at Oregon, and that's if he comes in to be the Wildcat quarterback. And you know what? I'd be here for it. We saw that package work back in 2012 with Brian Bennett and Colt Lyerla handing the ball off in the backfield, and they split Mariota out wide, and you knew they were running the ball. But the reason that could legitimately be something Oregon rolls out if they want to with Moga is, number one, he's athletic enough. We also saw Texas do this last year with Arch Manning. So it's not just, a gimmicky thing that teams do for fun. Like, those were both high-level teams, 2024 Texas and 2012 Oregon, both won double-digit games. So Dante Moore can move. He's not a runner necessarily. He can be in spots. He's not a runner. When I think runner, like Jeremiah Masoli was a runner as a quarterback. He was a good passer too. Darren Thomas could run. I think Thomas was more of a runner than Dante Moore is. I think Dante Moore is like Vernon Adams. He wants to run to throw, and then he'll run if he absolutely has to. And of course, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with how Vernon Adams' season ended in 2015. But I've always been a huge Vernon Adams fan. So the reason I don't think the wide receiver move makes a lot of sense, Blazer Duck, is that this collection of wide receiver talent is unlike anything Oregon has ever seen in the last 3 years. And this receiver room has the second highest grade going into the spring game, in my view, of any position group on the team. They've got a B+. The only one in the A category is the defensive line. I think the defensive line is an A-. I would have given last year's group at least an A, if not an A+. And in retrospect, that was an A+ defensive line. So I think for Moga, he has to improve as a passer and hope Dante Moore doesn't come back, or else I think his path to playing time, maybe if Novosad transfers, he could be someone that battles for the starting job in 2026. I've always thought of him as an Avery Johnson type. Go watch Avery Johnson highlights at Kansas State if you want to see what Luke Moga's ceiling is. Johnson is not an elite passer. He is an elite runner. He's one of the best running quarterbacks in the country. Nothing wrong with that. Lamar Jackson made Louisville legit, won a Heisman Trophy. Avery Johnson, dark horse pick to win the Heisman this year at Kansas State. Like, you can win with those style of quarterbacks. There's no reason that it can't work. It's not a direction Oregon's necessarily gone in. Mariota could run, but threw first and foremost at a really, really high level, executed the offense really well, and all that stuff. So I am curious to see where Moga is at as a passer, because if he hasn't developed, there might not be a path to him ever starting at quarterback for the Ducks. And then the only true freshman in the room is Achilles Smith Jr., and haven't really seen a lot of him either. Like, you can check out his high school highlights, and that's impressive. That's all good and fine. Ty Thompson's high school highlights were impressive too. So, with quarterbacks in particular, I only make so much of a high school highlight tape and recruiting profile. You've either got it or you don't. Mariota was a 3-star recruit. Not a big-time guy when he came into Oregon. He sat for a year and ran Darren Thomas out of the program. Not like he forced him to leave. Mariota's way too nice of a guy to do that. But he was so good, Darren Thomas left. And I remember that so vividly when my brother first told me, yeah, Darren Thomas is leaving. And I said, what? Why? Well, apparently he's not going to be the starter. What do you mean? He was in the national championship game 2 years ago. He's won back-to-back Pac-10 titles. RIP. A Pac-10 and a Pac-12 title, I suppose. And he just won a Rose Bowl. What do you mean he's not? Who do they have? Yeah, best quarterback in the history of the program. Yeah, Heisman Trophy winner. That's who they had. So I think for Achilles, it's definitely an exciting opportunity for him. It's the first time he's going to really showcase his talents in front of Oregon fans, the fan base, many of whom, not all, many of whom remember watching his dad play. That's going to be a really cool full circle moment here. Now, going into the spring game, just bear with me here. Don't overreact. My overall grade for the quarterback room going into this spring game is a C+. This is subject to change. This sounds like a hot take. I put it slightly above average because of the caliber of talent you have. I think you have 2 Power 4 caliber starting quarterbacks in the room. Not a lot of places can say that. So yeah, I think it's above average compared to the rest of the Big Ten. I need to see Dante Moore grow first because this is a guy who in his first chance to start got benched. He's in a much better situation now. He was not in some disastrous hellhole at UCLA with Chip Kelly calling the plays. Like, it wasn't a mess. He had some good running backs. He had a couple solid receivers. It wasn't great. Got thrown into the fire. Offensive line wasn't very good. But yeah, right now I say C+, just because there is no proven production in this room. The only other group that I gave a C+ to, which again is not a horrible spot to be. I'm a tough grader. The only other room is tight end because I've got Kenyon Sadiq and I've got a bunch of unproven guys. So I will reassess every position group on the other side of the spring game to see if my opinion has changed. But right now I say C+ just because there's a lot of unproven hypothetical talent and ability in there that still has a ways to go to play at the high level that, you know, standard that was set by Dylan Gabriel and Bo Nix in the last couple of years. I'm sure everybody will love that particular take. Where can Oregon improve going into this fall? That's a really good question. First, this episode brought to you by Amazon. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Check them out at Amazon Fire TV. So before I get to a second question that Blazer Duck sent in that I thought was really good, this one came from Alexi. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think Tez Johnson purposely ran a slow 40 so that he could lower his draft stock and get picked up by the Broncos in the later rounds. The NFL draft starts today. Connerly might be a first-round pick. I think he slips to the second, and Derek Harmon is Oregon's first-round pick this year, and continues the Dan Lanning trend of having first-round picks. Christian Gonzalez after the 2022 season for the 23 draft. And then the 23 team, you, of course, had Bo Nix go in the first round to the Broncos. And then this year, I think you are going to see Derek Harmon be the next Oregon first-round pick. That is a hot take, Alexi, and it's a little tinfoil hat for my taste. I respect the boldness. I always respect hot takes. If you ever have a hot take that you want me to assess on the show, I'm always game. Because I'm either going to be right there with you or I'm going to tear you to shreds. There will be no in between. There could be in between. I just don't want there to be. It's not as much fun. So, I no, just no on the Tez take here. I think Tez gets drafted. Probably not today. Probably in the later rounds, but I think Oregon's going to have a pretty good number of guys drafted, and that never does anything but helps on the recruiting front, and is also a good thing to see for a staff that just can't develop. You know, they don't develop, blah, blah. Yeah, it's all utter nonsense and whatnot. But wrap up with this question. Spencer, Dan Lanning and his coaching staff are always looking to improve just like they expect the players to improve. What areas on the field, off the field, do you see them really needing to improve over the spring or summer months to be better this next season? If you're asking just about the coaching staff, which it seems like you are, the answer lies in having your defense prepared in the biggest games. Now, has Oregon's defense been really good over the last 2 years? Yes. Have they been great in big games? No, they have not. They have not made critical stops in a couple of different areas, and that's what sticks out most in people's minds. And you gloss over stuff like shutting out a horrible Purdue team, or a number 20 or a top 20 Illinois team that came to Autzen Stadium and scored 9 points, or just any number of great defensive performances. The Wisconsin game, like, they can all get overlooked because, well, Boise ran for a bunch of yards with Ashton Genty. That guy's freakishly good, by the way, if you didn't know. Well, Penn State put up 37 in the Big Ten championship game. Well, Ohio State put up 41. And in the win over Ohio State at Autzen Stadium, the defense allowed 31. Yeah, really, they allowed 24 because Jeffrey Bossa intercepted the ball. Can show you the tape as clearly as I can show you that Dyer was down. So I think that's the biggest area, is making sure that they are prepared and get off to strong starts in those big games. And that does come down to coaching. That comes down to game planning, execution, and adjustments. Those three things against Penn State and Ohio State in the last 2 games of the year, they weren't there. That's the next step, though. And yeah, it's harder against those teams because advantage is always on offense, just like it is in basketball or to pitchers in baseball, because they're the ones with the ball dictating what happens in the game. But still, I think that's kind of the next step. And there was a question going into last year. Can Dan Lanning win a big game? He'd won big games before, but he lost some really high-profile ones, and that stuck out. Well, then he beat Ohio State. Well, that kind of silences that narrative a little bit. So I think there are always ways for the coaching staff to improve. I think they have gotten better over the last several years, from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3. I'm optimistic they can make a jump. I don't know if it'll be as big of a jump because of the personnel turnover they're dealing with this year. But yeah, the biggest games, having the defense ready to go. I think the offense, for the most part, has performed well. I mean, you look at, the losses in the Dan Lanning era, outside of the Georgia game, when was it the offense's fault? When was it? Yeah, they could have executed the 4th and 3 at Washington in 2023. They picked that up, with maybe a better play call or what have you. Like, if they pick that up, they win the game. But you still put up, 34 points on the road? That should be enough. Anytime you score over 30 points, if you get into the mid-30s especially, that should be enough more often than not. So I think that's the biggest area that I look at for the coaching staff to improve. If you're as excited about the spring game as I am, let me know what you want to watch, and we'll talk about it on tomorrow's show. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.